All right, we're live.
So read.
So let's get this stream started with a recap of what's happened since Monday.
Yeah.
So
So
the
you want
first
to go
thing I
first?
have on my list here is that we fixed the unit navigation. So that
Yeah.
was what you did the other day.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Go ahead and start the game up so we can get a scene view.
mhm.
Um. Hopefully it actually launches. Nope.
Let's do a test match.
Yeah. Yeah. So the first thing
You
that
have a
we
test dummy available,
fixed up
maybe.
um uh last or on Monday originally we had in an older version of our game it was not nearly as card and single base oriented. It was originally a territory capture game, and we had a far denser network mesh or navigation mesh, and it was really boring when you would send 10 units from one base to another and just watch them all go in a line. So we had a fuzziness variable where every time they came to a new node, they would make a decision randomly. Unfortunately, the way that that worked out is uh, very awkward on this map because we would send a unit from one side of the map to the other, and you would think it would just
Hmm.
waste meter cut out of me.
Oh,
Um, you would
fun.
think it would just walk right through the middle of the map, but instead, almost without fail, the unit would walk around or it would come through here and walk around the edges and just completely avoid the most obvious path. So we ixnayed that really quickly. And now things work. Another thing that was a problem is units would often come over here and right there, they would just fall through the map and fall into the dark abyss below. And that was just a little math error.
What the hell is he
Um,
doing?
that it would appear that we have some more.
That's fucked.
Uh,
What the hell?
that's another thing that's on our to-do list. We have invisible colliders right now on the wall, and I'm imagining
It's probably pinned.
he just got stuck here.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
probably like sliding between the bridge and the wall.
So we'll just ignore him for now. Uh, drag select works in screen space now too, instead of world space. Before it was a little janky. Um, but I can get another one of these guys over here, and it functions just like you would expect it to. When you highlight over them, you have the option to select, and then you can shift select units just like that. It's a lot nicer than having to try and click on
Like,
them
yeah.
individually. Uh, Quality of life stuff is really exciting. Um,
Another minor
another,
thing that you took care of is that you knocked out. There's a bug with the empty library. If the library of cards on the left was empty, and it would try to draw a card from it, and it would cause a problem.
yeah, so right now my hand is full, but if I play an Ethereum generator, I'll have space in my hand, and you'll notice we added a little draw timer. Before, in previous iterations, we had the turn timer at the top, and we decided to get rid of that. So we didn't really like the gameplay decision. So now the turn timer has turned into a draw timer, and you just draw cards from your library at that rate whenever it fills up, and that's something that you'll be able to modify and increase with mods or units or just cards that you play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I imagine we'll probably have traps that slow down your opponents or prevent them from being able to draw temporarily, stuff like that. So I think that's a nice improvement. It's a separation from a far more monolithic system. Um, and that's most of the things that that I finished. And then we started getting into actually developing some features that hopefully we'll have by Friday to show off. If you want to talk a little bit about that, Tegan.
Yeah. Before I talk about the features that we're gonna go for Friday, I can real quick run through what I've done over the past few days. It's a lot of back end stuff, so I've got nothing to like visibly show for it. but it's like we implemented a system called the remote event system. I talked about that on Monday. It just lets you uh, like trigger an event on the server and have both the server and the clients do something. So an example might be like uh, if he were to play a card, it could make like a I don't know, it can make like an explosion on both the clients that can see it and the server or something. There's a lot of purposes. We're going to be using that for another system we're going to be working on and talking about today, the game feel system. So another thing could be like when a unit spawns, maybe a big unit shakes the screen. This will allow for stuff like that to work. Um,
Yeah, and that'll be super nice because currently everything feels very abstract and disconnected.
mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no sound for anything, and being
Yeah,
able to hook
sounds
that
are.
up to a system that we can use in editor, because currently we use a serialization system. So every single one of the cards that we have is created in data. So in order to actually facilitate that, because typically you would just program it, we have to write a whole bunch of custom systems to enable that, and Tegan's been putting a lot of work in to make that happen. And so it's been
Uh,
really nice, and I think it'll make development going forward a lot faster. So
mm-hmm. I think the stream is lagging a bit, but it might just be Discord. Yeah, so I implemented that system, and then I rewrote partially rewrote, I guess, another system that we had in place that to make it like utilize that new system, um, and that's basically all I've done over the past few days. It's a lot of back end stuff, nothing to show for it yet, visibly. Soon though. Um, yeah. So what we're going to be working on going into the next few days, basically, to begin with, our we had a long discussion about um, how spawning units should work in the game and how resource generation should work in the game and like what that'll look like. So what Ethan's working on right now is a system that'll allow you or allow us to basically build these special types of structures called resource generators. What they'll do is they'll generate resources up to a cap, and uh-oh, I think the stream is cutting out. I will pick it
bummer.
up in a moment. I see a lot of dropped frames. Okay, I think it's good now. Um,
That looks good to me.
Basically, these resource generators, in his example, there is the Ethereum generator. What they'll do is they'll generate up to a cap of resources. So that particular resource generator can hold one, let's say, resource. So it'll generate up to one resource and then hold on to it. And then once you spend that resource, it can then generate another one. The resource generators will be able to be upgraded um, via just like a natural upgrade path over the course of the game. They'll also be able to be modified using the mod system that I think we talked about the other day, where um, certain cards would be able to be played onto the structure, and maybe it gives the structure like a turret that attacks stuff, or maybe it increases the speed at which it generates the resource, stuff like that, which is fun. Another
Yeah,
part
I'm
of
really
that.
excited for that system. It's gonna take a while before we get there, but
Mm-hmm,
it'll I think it'll tie the all the structures together. And before we were talking about just having the teleporter be upgradable, which isn't currently implemented, but now having the resource generator upgradable as well, I think things will feel a lot more cohesive with the game,
mm-hmm,
and hopefully the structure will be something that we can balance pretty easily. Whereas before it was just infinite resources, it was just a pool of resources that would dump into your hand, and then um, you wouldn't have to worry about balancing and protecting anything. So
mm-hmm.
I'm looking forward to seeing that, and I think we're on track to have it done in a couple days.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good point. We kind of talked about this yesterday when we weren't streaming. We kind of wish we were streaming, but basically we ended up talking and we came to the conclusion that the way we want the game to be played is we don't want it to be very spammy. So we don't want you to like be able to save up a ton of resources and then just dump a ton of junk on the field simultaneously. We want it to play out kind of more turn-based, kind of like a traditional card game. So in order to facilitate that, putting caps on what the resource generator can hold gives us the ability to do that. So I guess the best comparison, the one that I came up with yesterday, is compare it to like a elixir generator from Clash of Clans, where it can only hold a certain amount of elixir, and the total number of collectors you have on the field contribute to your total like maximum mana for that particular resource. But each generator individually only contributes a small part of that. That way, if you want, like, say you want 7 iron to be available to you at any given time, you would need to either play 7 iron generators, or you'd need to play like a certain number of generators and upgrade them to be able to support that total cap of 7. But by only having that cap of 7, it means if I were to play a 7 cost card, I would have to wait at least a certain interval for all that mana to come back. I can't just store it up. I couldn't have like 50 mana, even though I've only put down like 3 generators.
Yeah, and you'll start to notice if you've played Magic before that this system is, uh, at least from my end, pretty heavily based on the land system, where you have a certain amount of mana to be able to use in a single turn, and every turn that flips back around. So it opens up the same set of options each turn, basically,
Mm-hmm.
which you can slowly increase and expand as the game goes on. And the reason that we're trying to implement it this way is because one of the hardest design challenges that we've had, trying to combine an RTS game with a card game, is how do you prevent the really all or nothing style gameplay from RTS games that I personally hate, where you just stay on your side of the map, put a whole bunch of things down, and then create your Zerg army and rush. How do you take the possibility to do that back and make it more tactical and, back and forth, like
Mm-hmm.
most strategy card games? And we've toyed around with different ideas that I don't think we can really get into for a while, but um, we're looking forward to potentially implementing neutral objectives in the middle of the map and pickups and different stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah.
our one step in the direction of card strategy play style versus, uh, real time strategy,
Mm-hmm.
which has been a fun challenge, but we won't
Um,
know until we actually get to play with people
yeah.
whether or not we're pulling it off right.
So the next thing that we're um, also going to be working towards, it's another part of this same system that we just talked about, is the teleporter pad system. um, the teleporter pads are what essentially allow you to spawn in units. They're structures that you place down in the world, and then when you play a card near that, or when you play a card, the nearest teleporter pad to it that is capable of spawning that unit will spawn that unit. And teleporter pads will basically allow you to um, push forward and gain control of the map by having places that you can forward spawn units. Um, the interesting part about the teleporter pads is just like the resource generators, they'll have an upgrade path where you, starting out, like a basic teleporter pad that's level 1 might only be able to spawn cards that cost between 0 to 4 like total converted resource cost. And then level 2 is 5 through 9 cost cards. And then level 3 is 9 plus cost cards. So any card that's more expensive than that. And the idea behind this tiering system is that it would, one, it means that you can't just rush down big units at the start of the game. And then I think the stream froze again.
That's fine. We'll just speak for
Yeah.
the recording.
Well, yeah, that's fair. The what's the other thing? The
One of
other
the very important aspects of bases is or teleporter pads rather, is they're the way that you actually get cards out of your deck into
yeah,
your
that
draw
too.
pile. So currently, since they don't exist, your entire deck just goes straight into your library and you start pulling from it. But um, we wanted to make this a little more. I honestly don't know why we're going with the idea, but I like it. Each teleporter that you place down unlocks access to the respective level of cards. So Tegan mentioned the first level is 0 to 4. So just like the resource generators, it's going to generate a bar, and when it reaches to the top, it's going to pull from all of the cards in your deck between 0 and 4 cost and put one in your draw pile. And then you'll have the ability to pull it from your draw pile, have it in your hand, and play it. So
Mm-hmm.
as you upgrade it, you gain access to more and more cards. So you could design a deck around really low cost cards or mid range cards, or you could tier your progress. So you would be able to say, in the beginning of the game, this is exactly the set of cards that I want. I think it allows for more interesting deck design. We'll see how it plays out,
Yeah,
but um, that I think gives more options for players. And if you're not super interested in being stuck in drawing lower cost cards, there's, of course, because it's part of the structure system, going to be mods so you could change how it's pulling. But that'd be an interesting thing to also have to try and balance. So
yeah. With what
we'll
he
see how
just
that
said
goes.
there, the mods, specifically what it would do is like you could play a mod with that limits the range. So if like a teleporter pad that can summon 9+ cards would be able to generate cards anywhere from 0 to 9+ cost. So what you could do is put like a lower bound on that using a mod, so it could only generate 8 cost or higher cards. Um, and that would add a bit of strategy. And unfortunately, you'd have to sacrifice a card in your deck for that. But maybe it's to your advantage to be able to pull other cards more consistently. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah.
People will determine if that ends up being a useful tactic or not. So,
Yeah, I imagine it would be, but I'm very interested to see how the things that we anticipate just get completely turned on their head.
mm-hmm.
I'm very excited to see how different people put the toys together
Yeah.
to come up with something else. um, yeah, and I mean the rest of the work that we've been doing has just been on back end editor stuff, trying to
Mm-hmm.
get things ready for all this to work. So I think that's pretty much everything that we've got
So, for going into Friday,
working.
another thing that we're going to be working on, or specifically me, right now, is we're going to be working on the game feel um, stuff. And so we were just going to, we're not exactly sure what that's going to look like. So we're probably just going to have a conversation about that right now on stream. Why not? Um, see what that comes out to. And then on my list over here as well, we should create the logo for the game today, but maybe we'll just do that Friday like we had planned originally. Because I don't,
Yeah, depending on how much time we have.
yeah, because we
Looks like we
actually,
got about 10 minutes.
that's it.
Oh, no.
We've only been live 20
We
minutes.
got
If we go
40
for an hour,
minutes. Yeah, definitely look at the clock wrong.
I'm getting a phone
Yeah,
call.
something that Tegan's been
Hold
working
on,
on
I'm gonna
lately
mute myself.
is,
Take my
yeah,
phone
go for
call.
it. Something that Tegan's been working on is the
Hello?
highlight shader. So currently, this is an old version. Unfortunately, we don't have a
What's
visual
up?
for what he's got right now because it got lost in Git. But
Message him
uh,
back for what?
the highlighting system works decently well, but you'll notice with units that are highlighted at a
I
certain
I
height,
have no
they
clue.
just get clipped off and you can't tell what's actually selected.
Yeah,
It
we're
looks like I only
streaming
have
right
one
now. That's
unit
probably why I
selected.
didn't see him.
Um, he's got
All right,
shader
peace.
pack plugin, whatever, that fixes that, as well as when units go behind walls, there's absolutely nothing you can do. You can still select units behind walls, and tell them what to do, but you can't see where they are. So we're going to have a stencil shader that pops them through so you can see what's going on at all times, because we'd really like to explore some 3D environments that are complicated and have uh, indoor spaces. Like it'd be really cool to have caverns that get covered up, and of course we'd probably want to expose them somehow, like we have with this warehouse and the glass ceiling. But in the event that, I don't know, maybe one of them gets scared and runs into the shipping crates over here, you'll just have no idea that there's a unit there. Um, so that's a huge change that I'm looking forward to.
What happened?
Ooh.
I'm back, but I kind of boned the stream a bit. I don't know what I did. Is my screen never sharing?
Nah, you're streaming. That is interesting. Cool, whatever.
You're gray for me. I don't know why on the stream. You
Yeah,
have
I think Discord's boxes moved around.
potentially
That's okay.
whatever. I can't get your camera to show back up.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna get my drawing pad and we can start talking about game feel.
Yeah. Mm, I want to get your camera back. They definitely moved. I don't think it's happening.
That's cool. All right.
Whatever.
So
You're only gonna see me now, unfortunately.
we have a couple of things to talk about with game feel. Um, maybe I should write this out in text. So we got force feedback. Wow, what a fancy font. Or rather input feedback. Um, gameplay events and uh, say atmosphere. Those are the, well, I've never seen that before. That's cool. Um, these are the three fundamental concepts that I think we need to consider and talk about. Um, so this gameplay events are going to be primarily things that are happening via the server, I imagine. And I think these can be handled by your remote event system
Mm-hmm. For
decently
sure.
well. Input feedback is going to be entirely UI client based. That includes buttons and everything, but also when you highlight over a unit to select it or you drag select, stuff like that, there needs to be sounds so people know what's going on. Atmosphere, that's probably a combination of the two: music, ambient sound effects, and unit sound effects. I'm really excited to get into music eventually, but for now, completely irrelevant. We'll just throw Kevin MacLeod's music over the top of each game
Yeah.
and just call it there. Um, and I imagine ambient sound effects would be in a similar vein. Unit sound effects, are should probably be handled by the server the same way, and maybe
Maybe.
that would be considered gameplay events as well. Uh, they also don't need to be, and what I think might make the most sense is the server sends the relevant information about what's happening to the client, and the client reacts. And that might just be the way that this works in general, because of how event systems work. But the server would say the unit is shooting, and then in the client's code, it would be drawing the animation. It would trigger the sounds as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely how it should work.
It
Um,
makes the most sense.
like a unit is attacking, and then it'll play the unit's attacking noise on the client. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Unit dies. That'll be handled a little differently, but weird stuff.
Okay. So the run client side, obviously they're going to run client side. Um, Most of this is going to run client side, but
Mm-hmm.
the server is going to trigger the events, which is probably makes more sense to make units sound effects part of the gameplay events. So the gameplay events are mostly unit stuff. I think we should add something for spawning. You should have different sounds and animations for structure spawning.
Mm-hmm.
We should probably be smart about this and make sure that we don't overwhelm ourselves. And we should pick the most important things
For right now.
as well as the easiest things. So we shouldn't implement the music system,
Yeah.
but we can have tick sounds when you hover a button
Mm-hmm.
or a unit, and select a unit.
There could be
Uh,
sounds when you get a new card, like when a card gets drawn from your library. It could be like a swoosh.
yes, that's a good one. And maybe I should actually be doing this in a Google Docs. Let's just
Yeah,
put it down at
making
the
a list
bottom.
of game feel. Yeah, I would just fill out like a
Game
game feel list.
feel, and we'll just go ahead and put client here. So
I'm gonna open that up too.
units, cards, we're gonna have UIs, buttons. Uh, when a card is drawn, played, rejected. That's a really big one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we need the sound effect, and I think it should flash red.
Yes, I was gonna suggest that too. Like the edges of the
Blink
screen
red.
flash red for a moment.
Oh, interesting. I was saying just the card, but I think it's a good
Oh,
idea to do something to the whole screen. We should set up a situation where the whole screen can be modified, because I'm thinking, for instance, when a massive beast spawns, the screen should shake a little bit, maybe flash uh, a
color.
color. We could have it distort a little bit, zoom in or zoom out whenever your base takes damage, for instance. And maybe that would be too much to do something every time your base takes damage, but maybe every time your base hits a threshold, so we could modulus it. So
Mm-hmm.
every 10th of your health, you get a sound effect. And that's probably important.
If we could figure out how to determine the start of combat against something, you could also have it flash like a little icon on the side of your screen that says like your base is under attack. That points
That
towards the
is a
base
good
that's under
idea.
attack. That's later
Yeah,
though. That should be a later
I
thing.
I agree. I think for major game events, we should also obviously have the win-lose condition,
Mm-hmm.
sound effects, and major segments of main base health lost.
Sure. This is like a general
We
thing.
could do SFX, and we could flash. Actually, no. I think any damage should flash. Flash red or something. And just do a quick
Yeah, on
highlight
the
of
main
red.
base, it should definitely. Maybe not on other bases, but on the main base, if it takes damage, definitely flash red on the edges of the screen.
Ooh. Yeah, since the main base is basically your health, you as a player's health.
Yeah.
I was thinking we could flash the highlight of the scene object when it takes damage. And I think that would feel pretty natural. But we'll need to have your what's it called? Shader, highlight shader stuff
Mm-hmm.
settled.
So wait, what is this for? It flashes the shader when the unit takes damage?
Yeah,
Okay.
just a single frame of red.
Yeah, with the highlight. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write highlight. Or maybe the whole unit flashes red. I don't know. Highlight. For now.
I, yeah, I think the whole unit should flash
Yeah.
red. If it's for a single frame, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the highlight, I think, would be missed, as well as it could blend in if you were actually highlighting the unit. It could be problematic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Swoosh SFX when drawn. When played, a card should probably play some sort of play SFX. I don't know. Um, Potentially also we were talking about having like a feed maybe over on the left or the right that shows you when another player plays a card and what card they played. Kind of like Hearthstone has the feed. Maybe
right.
that could be part of this. I don't think that's something we should do now, but it's an
No,
idea.
but we should implement something so you can look at what units are. You should be able to look at a card if someone's played it.
Yeah.
Maybe not by the way that they've played it, but yeah, in the scene objects, if you click on it,
Let's
if you select a unit, it should bring up a little info box.
let's write down every idea, regardless of if we're gonna do it or not right now, and then like mark the ones that we're gonna do right now, um, just
Sure.
so we don't forget them.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
So when a card is played, show card in card feed. Um, Win loss sound effects. Major. General. Improve highlight. On damage.
I'd really like to play around with different visual effects. There's not a lot right now that I can think of that we can push creatively. I mean, we're already doing a lot, and I think maybe this this is a pretty decent list. This is
Mm-hmm.
a full day's work, probably,
Yeah.
assuming that we need to implement systems. If everything's
So
set up, then it might take a couple hours. But
yeah. I'm guessing the sound effect system will have to change TAD because I don't remember how it works. The system we have built in right now. Um,
mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think we should scrap it entirely because that was for a 2D version of the game.
yes, I think it can be integrated as opposed to scrapped. but we'll look at
Let's
it.
look at it.
Yeah.
We'll pick it apart. I'd rather design it from scratch with this in mind than try and retrofit something
Yeah. I
that might
agree.
take 20 minutes.
Menu transitions, buttons, hover, tick, click loop. What else? I feel like there's other stuff we're
All of
missing.
this under client. This
Oh.
isn't all client
Um,
sided, and maybe we don't need to worry about that distinction.
while selected, and obscured, um,
I
what is this?
personally think that while they're obscured in general, they should have a full body highlight.
All right. While obscured,
Yeah, and maybe
show
I.
the wall.
Oh
Um, when
no, yeah, I
highlighted,
don't.
uh, when highlighted, increase intensity. I
Yeah,
guess,
that's a
yeah.
good idea. It should be pretty dark, but you should at least be able to see something.
Yeah.
We also need to get rid of the colliders. I'll add that to my to do
Get rid of the
in the
what?
selection units. Get rid of the in-scene colliders because uh, they interfere with highlighting because Unity is detecting that there's a collider between the mouse and the object, so you can't actually highlight units through scenes if they or through
Oh.
walls.
Yes. I know what you're talking about now.
Uh,
It took a moment.
so, yeah, I'm gonna say
Um,
separate colliders,
swoosh,
client
specific.
server colliders, since they are different, and just leave the ground for the client. I
Oh,
cannot picture a scenario where you would want to click on a wall. Can you?
no. I couldn't.
Yeah. So what needs to be implemented to make game feel work? These are all the things that we would like to do. They're sound effects, they're nice little visual things.
So we have the remote event system that helps
Clicks,
with some stuff.
clicks on the environment. We don't. Oh, you just added that. I wasn't looking. Never mind.
Yeah, when you give a command, I want it to have a little RTS arrow. Um, yeah. All right, systems that need to be implemented. Obviously, a sound system needs to be
Yeah.
implemented. Um, one that's very dynamic in that it is able to receive messages from the server to play, or maybe it doesn't receive messages from the server. The events are set up in such a way where, yeah, you get what I mean.
Right. Yeah, they trigger it. I'd like to make it pretty generic, or rather, we should make tiers because I want to make sure that we can use this for the music system as well. But I want to make a rather complicated music system,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe in our game, it wouldn't make the most sense to try and. Well, no, yeah, I want to have a dynamic music system that changes based off the context of the game.
Okay.
So things get intense when they're intense and settle down to very relaxing when there's not much going on. Or not very relaxing, like we're not trying to play Minecraft music, but
Yeah.
it would be it'd be nice to just have some I don't know low hums and strings while there's not a whole lot going on, and then big toms and kicks and stuff when there's a battle going on and the game's close to an end. So yeah, it needs to be flexible so that the music system can take advantage of it. Which really isn't a lot to ask. We're talking about having a function that says play sound.
We also should do this, the second one that I've written, if you scroll up on your screen. Um, I'm thinking that for like,
Okay, cool.
if a unit has a walking sound or something, there needs to be a way
Yes,
for it to,
a
although,
looping sound.
yeah. We can think about how those will work.
Yeah. Yeah, we might sound system that interfaces with Unity, and then we'll implement something. We definitely want to have spatial audio and non-spatial audio, and we could make them parameters, but we could also separate them to UI audio and scene object audio.
Mm-hmm.
Because I imagine the scene object audio would handle rather differently. The audio would be modified based off of what's happening. Uh, I picture your instance, your moving objects. Say we have a tank or a Tron cycle. When it's moving slow, it has a pretty low pitched
Mm-hmm.
engine, but as it moves faster, there's there's that dynamic link
Yeah.
between speed and pitch. And I don't know if we should try and implement a system that is able to handle that flexibly. That might just be
I
overkill
I would
for
say
specific scenarios.
I would say that point one and point two are separate systems, with point two kind of just being built into the like the scene object controller. Could honestly handle this stuff because
Right.
it's like literally attached to the game object. So why not?
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So this would probably be a separate system. Like it's still sound system, but it's separate in its functionality.
Right. So we would have play individual sound uh, globally and at position.
Yeah.
And then, yeah,
Okay, sound.
I think we just make that handled by the unit. Yeah.
Controller.
Cool.
I think
And
that's all that the sound system needs to do right now. Eventually, music, but
right.
that might end up being its own little system too, with like some intelligent stuff going on to make the dynamic
Right.
music work.
Yeah, I think it would be its own system that just takes advantage of
What?
it. I mean, realistically, implementing the sound system is not it's not a thing. What are you doing?
I'm pressing tab.
Over and over again?
No, tab and then shift tab. It wasn't letting me go to B.
Oh,
It was just going to
gotcha.
2 for some reason. Okay, B. Um, so we need a sound system for the game feel.
Gotta get the highlight shaders working.
We need a. This is a small system, but we need a screen or edge screen like flash system.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah,
very
so
small, like one class that you would just tap, you change the color and say go, and it would do the
it would
flash.
probably, right, it would probably be implemented into the camera controller because the camera controller should probably have access to the actual way that the camera renders
Mm-hmm.
in some capacity. Uh,
I'd
at least
imagine
it'll be
this would
the
be on the
closest to
UI.
it. But yeah. And yeah, I'm not at all opposed to making it a separate object. But on the note of camera controller, you need to fix the camera controller.
Yeah, that's
I
something
think
separate. Maybe
yeah, we'll
part
make it
two.
its own system.
What
Uh,
else?
I don't
Um,
know. We'll settle that when we get there.
there are general things. I guess I can add to the mouse controller. We want the RTS arrow indicator.
Mm-hmm.
That can just be built into that. Um, Undamaged. Flash red for single frame. Click. No obscured. So I guess built into the unit controller, or maybe this is part of the scene object controller rather. Scene object controller. We need a way of doing. We need to update highlight system. Um, Add obscured object logic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Units only. Because would you want to see a tree through the wall? Probably not, right?
Probably not.
So
Yeah.
units only,
Would you
maybe.
want to see your bases?
That's a good question. So maybe units and structures, but maybe you don't. I don't know. Structures are a lot more
Yeah, I don't
obvious
know.
than units, though.
They're static too. You're not going to end up missing them. You're not going to get up and walk away
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah.
We had talked about having a walking teleporter.
That would be fun.
What's the Studio Ghibli film with the Magic Castle?
The professor something in the walking castle.
Whatever. Yeah, we'll just put that in the game. Uh, yeah, unit structures should be able to be highlighted. There's not really any UI to interact with structures right now,
Is it castle
so
in the
maybe
sky?
that's
Howl's Moving Castle.
how was moving cast.
That's what it's called. Howl's Moving
That's it.
Castle. Hmm. Yeah. All right. What else? Add obscured object logic. I think that's it for the scene object controller. What else? The rest of these things kind of just get triggered through events, so they're kind of going to be all over the
Mhm.
place. No real
Yeah, and
system.
they're rather simple. We should probably implement a particle system. And this is further down the line, but we should look at the particle effects shader, not shader, particle effects graph
Mm-hmm.
for unit stiff. Well, honestly, just
Ah,
all stuff. It'd be pretty cool to have just particles everywhere.
yeah.
When
Eventually,
units are
too.
shooting flamethrowers, it'd be cool to have base particles. Uh, I'd like to have volumetric fog in some capacity, just really set the tone of the map,
Mm-hmm.
which may not at all be possible, but
Eventually, maybe.
as a particle, it would probably work fine.
Yeah. The one thing that we need to do eventually too, probably in the beta, is the legendary, the always talked about projectile system.
Yes.
It's brought up at least once a week, and it's always shoved further and further back. But it's important.
Well, yeah, because right now the only units that we have are melee units, realistically.
Yeah.
Not that we can't make ranged units, but we just. I think once we have some animations that make sense for ranged units, then we'll add them, and maybe that's
Oh.
something we should do next week. Is start playing around with getting some animations and meshes from Mixamo. Oh,
Because they're trigger they're set to go off in the code. They're written to go off. They just don't work. And I
yeah,
haven't bothered to figure out why because it's not super important.
right.
But now it is. So
Cool.
is that all there is? I'm just gonna write um I'm gonna write expose miscellaneous events um and subscribe certain things from the GF list to them.
It's game feels,
Yeah, game
game feel.
feels or game feel list. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all there is to it. It's a big list of stuff, but it's also kind of small because it's just a bunch of small things.
Yeah, it's a bunch of little tweaks, and that's kind of the fun thing with game feel is it's just real. It's not a lot of work, but it's a ton of results very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely looking forward to that. We've got 10 minutes left. We could dive into trying to brand AltarGene. I really don't have any ideas other than the name of the game.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
unfortunately. And that's, I mean, that's kind of the creative process. I just don't think we'd be able to come up with anything satisfying in 10 minutes.
Yeah, definitely not in 10 minutes. I'd say we save that for Friday. And at the end of the day on Friday, since my best guess is that we'll probably still be within this realm of game feel and structures. Um, by the end of Friday, we'll have checked stuff off the list, but we won't have anything new really to talk about. That would be a good time to um, probably do that.
Maybe. Yeah, I'd like to get the structure system up, but even still, I think
It's a lot, so I
it's like
wouldn't
it
expect it
exists.
to be done by Friday.
I'm expecting it to be done by Friday. Gonna put pressure on me. Otherwise, I may slack off. I'm gonna think I'm good to go. Depends on if I'm waking up at 5 or noon.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta roll the dice to see what happens. All right. I think it's a good place to end the stream.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking us out. If you're interested in what we're doing and supporting us, obviously, uh, subscribing and liking and commenting on YouTube or joining us during our tri-weekly, I don't think I said the right thing,
Tri-weekly
um,
makes sense.
tri-weekly streams on Twitch. We stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5:30 to 6:30, and all of our clips go up on YouTube. So if you're interested in following along there, then you can keep up to date. And if you want to help us out financially, we've got a Patreon. It'll be linked in the YouTube video description when that's live.
It's also on the screen
Um,
here if you're watching the video down at the bottom right.
yes.
It's cut off. Whoops. But it's Solar Storm Studios. It's the same extension as the Twitch link.
Yep, we've got perks for the game coming up if you donate through there, various different tiers. So if you're interested, check it out. Otherwise, keep hanging out, keep your eye open, and we're gonna keep doing this until we get to go live with the game. So
Yep.
thanks
All
for
right.
hanging.
Thanks for watching.